It is the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Good afternoon. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We will be with you here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports content, and excited to do so. Wade, happy Monday.
What's up, Mo? Good to be with you. Good to see everybody. We got a jam-packed show. We got a great Monday on tap. Vibes are high and ready to rock and roll here on this good-looking Monday.
Absolutely. It is officially high school football season here in Tennessee. We will have games that count starting Thursday night. In fact, Wade will be bringing you one of those games Thursday night. Am I right, Wade?
Yeah, looking forward to a good game. Beach and Green Hill will be there. It's going to be a pretty popular destination, it seems, with TV in the house as well on Thursday. So lock and load, as they say, for the first week of the high school football season.
Absolutely. My TV 30 bringing you Friday night rivals on Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night this week. But yeah, Beach and Green Hill getting things started, and Main Street Radio will also be on hand. Wade and Casey Patrick bringing you the audio from that one. And that should be a good one, man. A couple of playoff teams from last year. Green Hill didn't have quite the playoff run it would have liked, but both highly successful programs here over a short period of time. So should be a lot of fun, Wade.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Couldn't really think of a better way. There's a couple good games across the mid-state on Thursday, but couldn't really think of a better destination, as you said. The two really good teams, two prideful programs, classic kind of matchup to set the tone in 6A football to get us revved up.
Absolutely. Again, high school football starts this week, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. We'll be getting more into that as the week progresses. We got plenty to get into today, though. In the second hour, we will be joined by Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated as we continue our Southeastern Conference football previews. Sooners Illustrated pretty much gives it away. Tom Green, and we will be talking Oklahoma football there again in the second hour. In the next segment, we will be joined by Ann FISCHGRUND. She is the president of the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix presented by Will Scott. It's coming up on August 31st. That's 2 weeks from yesterday. So we'll be talking a little bit about that with her and kind of her whirlwind. She just kind of ascended to the top spot with that event back in January. So this will be her first on the ground experience with the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, and looking forward to talking to her about what all that entails. So that'll be our next segment. We'll also be talking a little soccer, a little baseball, get into some football at the professional collegiate. Yeah, that's as far as we're going to go. Just pros in college today. But we'll also get into a little golf, a little racing, other than the Grand Prix. So plenty to get into today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, monster show. Couldn't have really planned it any better. Football is back. We got high school Thursday and Friday and Saturday, as you mentioned. Big game on Friday with NBA and Pearl Cohn going to strap it up. Should be a good one on TV as well. And then it all really leads to Farmageddon coming up across the pond on Saturday. This is the best time of the year by far, and we have finally made it. We survived.
There we go. That's it. We survived, and we're actually getting started to kind of get a little cranked up about it, man. I'm pretty excited. I went to the Murray County Jamboree on Friday night and saw some pretty good matchups there with Mount Pleasant and with Battle Creek, which will be making its varsity debut Friday night when they host Mount Pleasant. And then Columbia Central and Spring Hill, who do not play during the regular season this year, but they matched up for a couple of periods in the finale of the Murray County Jamboree down at Spring Hill. So coverage, by the way, at mainstreetmurray.com if you want to check that out. But yeah, three pretty good matchups there. Kind of got your juices flowing a little bit, got you ready for stuff that counts. Again, starting this week, going to be a lot of fun. So that's what the show looks like today. Again, on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today. Let's go ahead, Wade, and get into it with yesterday's results, this weekend's results, and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
rundown coming your way, folks. But before we get into it, each and every single Monday, our rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831. Or you can visit them online at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. Once again, that's Zion Christian Academy, where they are prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Friday, Major League Baseball scores of interest to me and Wade. The Atlanta Braves got another fantastic performance out of Hurston Waldrop in a 2-0 victory at Cleveland over the host Guardians. Houston struggled. They were on the wrong end of a perfect game for 7 2/3 innings. So Baltimore 7, Astros nothing was the final in that one. We'll talk more about that later in the show. The Nashville Sounds picked up a 6-2 victory over at Durham. In WNBA action on Friday night, it was the LA Sparks edging the Dallas Wings 97-96. Washington Mystics with an 88-84 win over the Indiana Fever. Golden State 90, Chicago 59. It was the Las Vegas Aces staying hot with an 86-83 win over the Phoenix Mercury, and Seattle edging the Atlanta Dream 80-78. Tough night in Atlanta because in preseason action, it was the Tennessee Titans down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium with a 23-20 win over the Falcons.
Roll into Saturday, Major League Baseball scores. It was the Braves topping the Guardians. 10-1 was your final there. The Astros defeating the Orioles 5-4. Sounds action. Durham picks up a 7-5 victory over the Nashville Sounds. And in WNBA, pretty good matchup. 86-80 was your final score as Minnesota defeats the New York Liberty. Once again, 86-80 your final in your lone WNBA matchup from Saturday afternoon.
On Sunday, it was the Braves completing the road sweep of Cleveland, 5-4 the final there. And the Orioles, again, 12-0 over the Astros. Tough weekend at home for the Astros against the not very good Orioles. Sounds action. Durham with an 8-4 victory in the finale over in North Carolina. The Sounds and the Bulls split that 6-game series. WNBA action from Sunday. Indiana with a 99-93 overtime victory, I believe, over the Connecticut Sun. Washington holding off the Sparks 95-86. The Aces with a 106-87 win over Dallas. It was Phoenix 85, Seattle 82, and Atlanta with a 79-63 win over Golden State. In Major League Soccer action, we'll talk more about this one later in the show, but the Nashville Soccer Club scored first and didn't score again. NYC Football Club 2, Nashville Soccer Club 1. Again, we'll get more into that here in just a bit. And at the BMW Championship, Scotty Scheffler down 4 going into the final round, wins by 2 over Robert McIntyre. 5th PGA win of the season. And death taxes and Scotty Scheffler. We'll talk more about that later in the show as well.
Yeah, kid's on a roll right now, to say the least, as props to him for winning the BMW there over the weekend. Schedule for today, a couple of MLB games to inform you guys about. One beginning at 5:40 as the Astros will travel to Detroit to take on the Tigers. Once again, your first pitch coming at 5:40. That game will be shown on MLB Network. The White Sox and Braves will get it on at 6:15. That game can be seen on FanDuel Sports South. So you got Astros and Braves both in action tonight as part of your Monday schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your Monday schedule. Those were your weekend results, and that concludes today's rundown.
Your top story brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. As we mentioned, NSC on the road again, which pretty much means NSC losing again. 2-1 loss up at the Big Apple to the New York City Football Club. Jacob Schaffelberg got the boys in gold on the board early, but they couldn't come up with anything else. And NYCFC rallies for the 2-1 victory, the third straight for NSC. Wade, are we concerned?
Yes and no. If you still were one of the real holdouts thinking maybe Nashville was, had the goods to win the Supporter Shield and finish at the top and, really, really maybe make a run at this thing, then yeah, you are massively concerned. But I've kind of landed in the camp. We're a year ahead of schedule if you're an NSC fan. Maybe you don't want to hear that, but you are a year removed and then some from one of the most putrid seasons you've ever seen. And unfortunately, when you go on a run, the law of averages is a cruel mistress sometimes. And the law of averages of that magical run that NSC went on in the first half of the season kind of probably was going to have to even out if they are the team that we kind of thought they might be heading into the season. And that is a above average team, not elite as we're seeing just yet. And the scores over the last couple of weeks, especially as you said, on the road, have reflected as such.
Yeah, again, their third straight loss on the road. First time they've lost 3 straight, obviously, all season. But all 3 of those, it started at San Diego, continued at St. Louis, and that's the one that I think probably most people who know a whole lot more about soccer than I do are particularly concerned with. But San Diego, St. Louis, and now this weekend up at New York City, those losses. And so, again, all 3 of those on the road kind of makes you feel better for the fact that their next one is at home.
Makes you feel better you're at home. You're also wondering, hopefully this bad run of form will eventually snap out. They need desperately. They won't get back on the run that they were on earlier this year. Like I said, that was pretty magical. That was Preds 2 years ago, where you go from not being a great team to suddenly somehow ending up in the playoffs. Nashville was on that trajectory. The good news for them is they were already a pretty decent team. So that kind of gave them just enough extra confidence to finish maybe in the top 2 or 3 or maybe even dream for the top spot. But realistically, playoffstatus.com, pick your poison. Nashville's kind of in a hodgepodge here. Could finish, realistically probably somewhere between the 3 and the 6 mark in the Eastern Conference, which is a far cry from where they were last year. So if you can have a little dash of realism splashed on you and be okay with that, you're sitting okay. But, man, it would be nice to see them kind of return and get at least something coming forward as they come down the stretch here.
Without question. Now, still tied for third in the Eastern Conference table with their next opponent, Orlando City, each of them with 47 points. Again, Orlando City comes in here for a Saturday 7:30 matchup. You can see that one on Apple TV, or you can head over to Geodis. But back-to-back home games, because next Saturday, August 30th, the day before the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, you'll have Atlanta United come into town. So you can make a heck of a weekend of it if you'd like. So got Orlando and Atlanta here over the next couple of weeks, and maybe home is where the wins are.
You hope so. You hope so, and the Orlando match is going to be massive. And Orlando's nipping it at the heels. Miami, still, I hate to say it, but Miami is the team that's really going to probably throw a monkey wrench in things. They still have a lot of easy matches. For as many difficult and challenging pieces of their schedule as they played, they got a pretty soft landing coming in. So don't discount Miami as far as creeping up toward the top of the table. But Orlando's going to be out for blood. Remember, this is the team that Nashville sent out their B squad to Orlando in the U.S. Open quarters and somehow got a win, lo and behold. So, they're going to be kind of desperate to come in. They're sitting just there right at 47 points with NSC. That will not be an easy match by any stretch. But if you can get a win there, Atlanta, your arch rival, is not having the best of seasons, but they're still your arch rival. But hopefully that would lead to a little bit better result at home. So it's not a lost season by any stretch thus far. NSC still's got a lot to play for, and that begs the question, will they throw all their eggs in the basket? And Belair and a couple other guests that we've talked to over the course of this season have said maybe they sell out for a trophy, and I will not be shocked if that's what they do when they have their U.S. Open semifinal in mid-September when they host Philadelphia. That will be their best chance, maybe realistically, to get any sort of hardware this season. So a lot to play for, but it's not great times right now if you're an NSC supporter.
It's certainly a little uncomfortable right now, especially for the Wades of the world who kind of have that PTSD with regards to a team that gets on a roll and then all of a sudden cools off a little bit. Interesting, Wade, this weekend, kind of thought we might see Tyler Boyd at some point. He didn't even dress, I don't believe.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. He got upgraded to questionable, and we closed the show on Friday by kind of saying as such. It'd be cool to see him on the sheet. It'd be really cool, obviously, to see him get on the pitch. But why rush it at this point? It's not as if him returning at 60% is going to be the extra juice that you need to beat New York Football Club on the road. So play it safe. It's a long season. You're hoping for a long playoff run too. So the more depth that you can have than anything, it would have been nice to see him out there. Not necessarily shocked, but the good news is you got a whole nother week of training, and hopefully we'll see him out there sooner than later.
Absolutely. And when he does come in, you feel like he's going to give you a little bit of a boost just because gives you another potential scorer up there. So, again, Schaffelberg, the only scorer yesterday for the boys in gold. Sam Surridge, I guess he's still the golden boot leader, did not score. Obviously nothing from Mukhtar because they only got the one goal. So, somebody else who has to be marked by opponents, and you would think that maybe that would help kind of open some things up once he does get back out there. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, NSC skidding, dropped their third straight on the road, hoping to come home and get things right this weekend against Orlando City. We will certainly be keeping an eye on that. Let's take a break here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be joined by the president of the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, presented by Will Scott. And FISCHGRUND joins us. Stay tuned.
All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid-Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
333.
Oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
The weekend wrap-up continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Joining us now is the president of the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, presented by Will Scott and FISCHGRUND. Ann, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, hello.
Welcome to Nashville.
Thank you. I'm a resident now as of 5 months ago, and it's a little toasty down here. It's definitely giving me a run for my money.
Where are you originally from?
Indiana, which normally I would say isn't that bad, but I think it's been a little toasty everywhere these days.
I think it is a little toasty everywhere, but it is especially toasty here, we think, because we're kind of used to it. So I don't know. Stay hydrated. But
Yeah. Yeah, give me a year and I'll be there too.
so how has this transition been for you? Because prior to you assuming the role of president of this event, you were out at Iowa, which wasn't quite as toasty either, I don't guess. But mo- more from the professional aspect of this, what's this transition been like for you?
It's been great. This community has been so welcoming, open arms. It seems like everyone in Middle Tennessee is ready for the next big event every weekend, right? Whether they went to the state fair this past weekend or they're getting ready to join us here at Nashville Super Speedway in 2 weekends, Labor Day weekend. It seems like everyone's always wanting to go out and about, despite the heat. People want to be out and about and see what's next and exciting.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Yeah, out in this heat. Yeah,
I'm here for it.
yeah, I understand. Um, you spoke with our Larry Woody a few months ago, not long after your arrival here, and he asked a very pertinent question. You know, what's it like being the president of a 1 day event?
Yeah, one weekend a year is a lot to prepare for. People always ask me if this is a year-round position, and the answer is yes, right? It's right now we're in the thick of it, trying to make sure all the vendors are like all the vendors are set up and ready to go. Customers have the right information, still pushing ticket sales up until that very last moment. But as soon as this race is over, we start planning for 2026, and that's recaps and um new acquisitions with partners and promoters alike. So it's quite a bit of work year round to keep this event up and running, even though it's only one, to your point, one race a year.
Is there a lot of debriefing coming out of August 31st? What went right? What went wrong? How do we fix it? How do we get better, even at the stuff that went right? That kind of thing. Is
Yeah.
that part of it?
Oh, absolutely. It's not only from internal, right? Our vendors and our staff, but also customers in the grandstands, customers in our suites, sponsors. We get feedback from everyone and really take that feedback to heart to make sure next year's bigger and better,
And
right?
how does that work for you from the standpoint that you don't really have a baseline for this?
You know, the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix has now been in Middle Tennessee for this will be its fifth year. 3 years of downtown on the streets of Nashville, and now this will be the second year here at Nashville Super Speedway. Even though our company, who's currently managing it, has never managed it before, there are a lot of things we have learned over the past few years, not only from the series that have raced here, but sponsors as well as the former promoters to take all that information and make sure that we're still trying to do everything possible to put on a great event for our partners and our customers. Um, we'll definitely learn a lot. I think any event, whether it's the first year or 100th year, always learn something, is always able to adapt and move forward. And while I personally sometimes dread those conversations of the feedback, I know they're super important to make sure we put on a great race, not only this year, but in the future.
And you've obviously got a ton of experience in the kind of the open wheel racing world. But what about this event in particular makes Nashville so special? And then what about this event? Have you personally or your team, what have you kind of had to learn or adapt to as far as selling this race compared to a race, at the Brickyard or a place like Iowa?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is that we have to get over is a lot of customers still think we're racing downtown or are wanting us to go back downtown. And listen, we want to go back downtown too. But if you live here in Middle Tennessee, you know we can't do that right now due to some construction taking place for football season of hopefully 2026. So the space alone makes it really challenging to go back downtown. So we are constantly thinking about how to communicate with customers, how to get them out to Nashville Super Speedway. Is that easier transportation? Is that just reminding them that the track really isn't far from downtown or a suburb if you live in a suburb, but the communication and the constant contact of what's to be expected, what to be prepared for, the exciting things to take advantage of while you're here. We're about to announce some music, which will be really exciting this week. We just announced who's going to be in the fastest seat in sports with our partner.
Mark, what do we got?
She probably got a phone call.
Hopefully we can get her back soon, because that it's a very fascinating event, obviously, that they've got going there. And like, as she was saying, second year at the super speedway, the novelty of it really not only being the first time that we had Indy cars here in Nashville, but running on the streets of Nashville was really a nationwide draw, I think. And hopefully I'd like to see them get back out there ideally, but it's, that doesn't make it any less of a great event that it's out at the Nashville Super Speedway, I don't think.
No, you're right. And working those three events, you could just see the smiles on everybody's faces. And I'm going to ask her when she comes back in, hopefully in a second, until the racing kind of got going. The racing is totally different on a super speedway as opposed to, obviously, through the streets. And so there were some challenges. There were some real kind of issues that Nashville had to battle through. And that's the part that I'm kind of curious about, is how this race looks different, feels different, operates different. The energy and excitement is still there, especially, amongst the real diehard race fans of the world. But what is their selling point? That was kind of what she was dipping her toes in the water right there before we had a little bit of a dropout.
Yeah, hopefully we can get her back in. And FISCHGRUND, first-year president of the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, presented by Will Scott, is our guest, and running into some technical difficulties. Technology is a beautiful thing when it works, and it looks like we've got her back. Ann, are you there?
So sorry about that.
Oh, stuff happens. Don't worry about it. We appreciate your diligence in getting back. And Wade had some more for you, Mr. Neely.
Oh, yeah, and I just wanted to ask, you kind of mentioned, obviously, the appeal and the novelty of going through downtown, and that is such a cool visual. But having been on the ground for all of those races there, man, the racing presented kind of some unique challenges, and there were certainly a ton of cautions. What's the feedback been like amongst the race community, the fact that this is actually going to take place on a venue, well, designed for racing?
I think our drivers, the NTT IndyCar Series drivers, as well as the Indy Next drivers, really enjoy the diversity that the series brings, right? Our drivers race on temporary street courses like you used to see here in Nashville, permanent road courses like they have over in Birmingham, Alabama at Barber Motorsports Park, as well as these permanent ovals. And I think the mix of all of them brings for a really unique season. But to finish a season on an oval where the competition truly is the most competitive, the fastest that these cars will absolutely go, is something really special. And I think the drivers appreciate that. But I think that they're always willing to do whatever opportunities put in front of them. But to end on an oval is super fun.
It certainly makes the racing a little more fluid, I guess. That was the real downfall, in a sense. At least that first year, seems like there was a caution almost every lap. But also
Yes.
being there, and there's so many other events that kind of go into this weekend. And you touched on the music and touched on the other kind of entertainment factors. But the racing alone and the qualification and the practice events kind of paint the picture of how massive this operation is and how big of a weekend it is, as opposed to just the one race.
It is. It is a full family fun weekend, right? Kids tickets are only $10 for the weekend for kids 12 and under. An adult ticket, I think the cheapest ticket right now is $50. We want to, for Sunday, we want to make sure that this is family fun, whether it's interacting with our sponsors in the free fan zone or coming into the grandstand and watching those races. IndyCar is also very accessible. We sell what we call a paddock pass, where customers can go into the garages and see the teams and the drivers working on the cars. Thinking about going into like a player's locker room. Most sports don't allow it, but we do. And so having those abilities to come and see it up close and personal and feel the speed of those cars, there's truly nothing like it. But we want to make sure that it is family friendly all weekend long. You can make it a whole weekend and come out and camp, or you can just come out on Sunday. We just want you to come and enjoy with us.
And what's the marketing kind of strategy behind knowing you have a racer or a driver like Joseph Newgarden, who's obviously got such great local connections here and does so much in the community outside of his everyday driving schedule? How do you tap into those other and kind of build up some other personalities, knowing that you have an ace in the hole, so to speak, with Joseph there?
We do. We're pretty lucky to have them in our in our backyard over here in Tennessee. But really, we've worked closely with some of the other championship contenders of the season. Um, Alex Palou will actually be in town tonight, the 2025 NTT IndyCar Series champion, as he clinched 2 weekends ago over in Portland. They're testing out here at Nashville Superspeedway tomorrow. Chip Ganassi Racing is. So utilizing him while he's on site. We've worked with Colton Herta, who used to be a Nashville resident, who won the race last year, bringing him into town, talking with media. He unveiled the trophy for this year's race a few weeks ago. So we take advantage of storylines we hope that make sense, but then also bring in fan favorites like a Joseph Newgarden.
And FISCHGRUND, president of the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, presented by Will Scott, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And, what's the draw of this event to make you come down here from Iowa? What was it that you liked about this situation as you were coming in?
It's a new challenge. Our company is new to running this event, as we earlier said, and you can't hide from a new challenge, a new community. And so I'm excited to keep diving in year over year, making a name not only for this race, but for myself and as a member of this community. And really making sure that IndyCar has a long lasting stand here in Middle Tennessee. You asked earlier why Middle Tennessee, and it's an untapped market, but we have race fans within so many race fans within 4 hours. The NTT IndyCar Series home base is in Indianapolis, where the Indy 500 takes place, with majority of our fans and customers. But the NTT IndyCar Series also races over in St. Louis. They race over in Birmingham. There's obviously race fans over in Louisville and Atlanta. And there's so many markets so close to here that it's a great place not only to finish the season with a championship race, but also a drivable distance for a lot of our fans.
You talked about Newgarden and Palau and some of the folks. Who are some other drivers that casual fans need to be aware of coming into this event?
Absolutely. No one should blink and absolutely pay attention to is Pato Award, driver number 5 of the Arrow McLaren car. He is amazing, a fun personality, a fighter on that track. Kyle Kirkwood, driver of the number 27 for Andretti Global. He Colton or Kyle has had a great year. Was definitely fighting for that championship earlier on. But there's just so many amazing personalities and drivers out there that really, we also offer an hour autograph session. I didn't say that earlier. There's an hour autograph session on Sunday morning with all these drivers, and they are so personable, so friendly, willing to take a photo. They're out there for an hour just signing autographs, first come, first serve, but signing autographs and really making sure that the fan and the customer feel that attention, and that to build that rapport with them is really something very special and amazing.
Now, were you a racing fan growing up? How did you get into this?
Not at all. I knew nothing about it. And I think that sometimes works in my favor, but knew about the Indianapolis 500, obviously, living in Indiana, and applied for an internship in marketing after college. And I've been fortunate enough to grow with the NTT IndyCar Series and Penske Entertainment, which is our parent company, since college, and been given great opportunities to continue to learn and grow and be a part of this community. I honestly never thought I'd be here, but couldn't have asked for something more special. The racing is so much fun. Our community is amazing, and I have become a fan, even though I didn't know anything about it. But it really is. It's something special to be a part of these events and to witness these events. And whether you're working it or attending it, they're just fun. And you can't really ask for a better weekend than that.
Now, as a high-ranking official with one of these events, have you been able to pull rank and actually get on the track?
In a car?
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I'd ever do that. No, we don't. I don't.
We all like to
No.
drive fast, right?
Oh, maybe you. Not me. I'm not the daredevil in the group. No, I don't even like going in like a commercial car and on the banking. I feel like the car is gonna flip over, so I leave it to the professionals.
Speaking of the track, and one of the telltale signs that the race is not being held downtown is the grandstands are not being constructed for seemingly weeks and months on end. But I am curious, are there any tweaks or adjustments that will be made, whether to the track specifically or to the kind of the surrounding areas to kind of really make this thing have an extra pop in your mind?
The glory of using a permanent venue like Nashville Superspeedway is it's already here. We don't need to adjust it very much. We'll bring in displays and activations from our sponsors. The teams will start setting up in the garage area. But in general, we don't have to touch it, which is really, really nice. We'll add signage and branding and make it feel like you're at an IndyCar race. But outside of that, it's nice that there isn't those needs for long-term build out like you had downtown. It does. I'm sure people aren't missing the block being put onto the bridge and the grandstands being built. But it's nice that here we don't have to do that because it's an amazing facility as is.
You mentioned it earlier too. What's it like competing in terms of an entertainment capacity with the Wilson County Fair? That's about as big of an event as there really gets in Middle Tennessee, and you guys are going right up against them in terms of back-to-back weeks.
We are, and that's okay. Like I said earlier, I think everyone loves a good reason to get out and something new and exciting to see and do. We are excited to announce our music here coming up later this week. The coolest part about being in Nashville is that not only do you have potential access to all the amazing artists here, but then that opens it up to everyone else too. So you're lucky if you get someone here. But there's so much amazing talent out there, so many amazing artists and groups that I think we'll end up with a really great announcement this week that people will be excited about.
Stay tuned, she says.
Stay tuned.
Exactly.
Yeah, stay tuned.
They call that a tease, y'all.
Stay tuned.
Folks in Wilson County will have the ability to see a demolition derby and an IndyCar race in a close, short period of time, I guess. So that's kind of cool.
Like I said, always something to go and see and do.
There we go. And FISCHGRUND, president of the BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, presented by Will Scott, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Again, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And we appreciate your time. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for coming back to us. I mean, we've had guests that just once they get knocked off, they're just out. So No, thanks for giving us Ann 2.0. We really appreciate it. And good luck in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Customers can still buy tickets at musiccitygp.com. We'd love to have everyone out.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. When we come back, we'll get into a little baseball. Stick around.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller. Main Street Media is partnering with BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway to send a family of 4 to the race August 31st. To register, please visit any Main Street Media website and look for the Register Here banner. You'll also receive some fantastic BORCHETTA Bourbon Music City merchandise. We look forward to seeing you at the race.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
August 18th, 1960, Milwaukee's Lou Burdett faced the minimum 27 batters and scored the only run in a 1-0 complete game no-hit victory over visiting Philadelphia. Burdett retired the first 13 batters he faced before hitting Tony Gonzalez with one out in the 5th inning. The next batter, Lee Walls, hit into an inning-ending double play, and the final 12 Phillies went down in order. Burdett led off the bottom of the 8th with a double and scored on Bill Bruton's two-bagger to give the Braves the lead, then induced 2 groundouts and a flyout to preserve his gem. That was this day in Braves history. Hashtag pitchers who rake once again. See, we're not getting any of that with the DH, Wade.
Back in my day, pitchers used to hit.
Absolutely. I mean, what's better? I mean, that sounds so high schoolish, man. I mean, throwing a no-hitter and scoring the only run? Where does that happen?
Yeah, that's old Hoss Radburn status right there almost.
No doubt. Or Ryan Weathers status. I mean, so yeah. Big day for the Braves there. Big day for the Braves yesterday as they closed out a sweep of the Cleveland Guardians, 5-4 the final on Sunday after that 2-0 win on Saturday and another victory to open things up on Friday. Atlanta 5-1 on their road trip to New York and Cleveland. Won their last 5. They won 4 of their last 5 series. You know, and it feels like, okay, now what? And they're 11-6 in August, but they're 56 and 68 on the year. I mean, this season is it's a done deal. Somebody mentioned something on my Facebook yesterday that if they go 32-8 the rest of the way, they got a shot. 32-8 is 800 ball. I don't know that anybody other than the Milwaukee Brewers is doing that. So, but I mean, you kind of take it for what it's worth. Yeah, again, Michael Harris II has been rolling. He only went 1 for 5 yesterday after getting 2 or more hits in each of his previous 8 games. Jerkson Profar hit a home run yesterday to put him up for good. Raziel Iglesias gets the save. Doing everything that you expected this Braves team to do all year long, and finally doing it in August when it means little or nothing, unfortunately.
That's how sports a funny game, right? Sometimes stink all season long and then play when the games are kind of meaningless. And you're hoping, just to string along some good vibes. It'd be nice if you got a guy that's either up against a hard decision salary-wise. Maybe you get some more intel. Do we keep this guy? Do we let this guy go? Do we restructure something? Is there a place for this person long-term in the organization? Those are the types of questions that you're hopefully getting a little more data on because, the meaningful portion of your schedule has left you by, and now you're kind of trying to get as much data and kind of assimilate and build toward the future as possible down the stretch here. But a little good vibes never hurt anybody along the way.
Not at all. Not at all. And I mean, at least it makes it entertaining this last, 6 weeks to 2 months. They're actually kind of, you can watch them and, kind of maybe hope a little bit more realistically for some success. They come back home to Truist Park tonight, 6:15 start. They've got the White Sox coming in. Sorry, Christopher Gabriel. Things might get a little tough. White Sox 44-80 coming in. Again, Atlanta 56-68 with this recent surge. It's Yoendrys Gomez, 2-1 with a 5.56 earned run average, getting the ball for the visiting White Sox. Spencer Strider, 5-10 with a 4.69 ERA, starting for Atlanta. So we'll see how this goes.
Hey, a little house divided between you and Chris there. Should be fun. Look forward to the banter over the next couple nights here.
It'll be worth keeping up with for sure. Again, tough weekend in Houston for the Astros. Almost got a perfect game thrown against them on Friday night against a guy who was 0-6 coming in. Dropped that one 7-0. Won 5-4 in 12 on Saturday, and then lost 12-0 yesterday. Again, Houston still in pretty good shape in the West, but to the point that Wade has made on numerous occasions, it's tough. The dry spells that they hit, to see them making much of a dent in the postseason unless something changes.
You would think, and that's kind of been when they were healthy for the first 5 games of the season, seemingly that was kind of always going to be. They made their bed, with the Kyle Tucker trade in the offseason. They tried to thread a needle, and if everything went perfect, you got one deep postseason run with the team as it's currently constructed, and you've kind of flashed a little glimpses of life, a little glimmer of hope. Despite the fact everybody's still injured, but you get a little help coming back. You only take one of 2. Fangraph still says you're going to win the division, but it is clearly a 2-team race going forward between them and Seattle. If you don't win the division, still nice and tight, still nice and safe, and barring an epic collapse to get into the postseason. So a chance to load up and maybe see what you can do this season has been kind of an up and down one, to say the least, and it will be an interesting next couple of months as they try and see if they can make one final push with this kind of core group that they have remaining.
Going to be an interesting next couple of days. 5:40 tonight, Houston opens a road trip. They go to Detroit. The Astros 69-55 on the season, Detroit 73-53, but they've had their struggles as well. And going to see a couple of pitchers who have struggled. Spencer Arrighetti 1-3 with a 6.38 earned run average, getting the ball for Houston. Jack Flaherty is 6-12 with a 4.76. Has not been quite the free agent acquisition that the Tigers would have hoped. So, interesting matchup.
Should be fun to see Arrighetti back on the mound. Maybe I'll cook a little spaghetti to get in the mood tonight to see my boy. Kind of one of those injuries. He got smacked by a line drive during batting practice in April and really kind of just has been downhill ever since. But early in the month of August, last week, as a matter of fact, kind of cracked back in. Second start, going against the Tigers. Hey, welcome to the fire. Welcome back to the show, right? Let's see what you got here. Hopefully get a win and hopefully kind of kick off a little bit of a spell of positive momentum. They certainly need some.
No doubt. You mentioned Seattle, 1.5 games back. Mets kind of did y'all a solid. Took 2 of 3 from Seattle over the weekend.
Yeah, huge for the Mets, obviously, and Seattle thought maybe they could make up some ground, but they kind of were stuck in neutral, despite the fact they got a dinger from Cal Raleigh last night. It has been kind of, in a way, it hasn't all just clicked just yet for the Mariners. They've certainly made up a lot of ground, but a lot of that has been because Houston has been playing so poorly with this basically walking AAA club they have as called their lineup at the moment. So the Mariners, they kind of got to get some things figured out themselves. They're still going to be in the postseason picture as well, and they want to get things figured out as they head into that piece. If they can win the division, cool, I would imagine, but certainly they got bigger fish to fry down the road.
The Mariners are the closest second-place team in baseball right now. Again, they're a game and a half back of Houston. San Diego, which came into the weekend leading the NL West, comes out of the weekend 2 games back of the Dodgers as LA got a sweep. And friend of the show, friend of Wade's and mine's, Pernell Knox, calls me yesterday and says, I just want to thank you for giving us Freddie Freeman. Apparently Freeman hit a 3-run homer that loomed large in the Dodgers win yesterday. So, you're welcome, PK. Just remember that. But yeah, I think that series this weekend did not quite live up to expectations.
No, certainly not if you're a Padres fan. Yeah, every time I was checking in on that, the Dodgers were just absolutely steamrolling them. They got some great starting pitching performances. The lineup gave them the pop kind of that they needed, and the Padres really kind of fell flat on their face. It didn't feel that long ago that we were talking about this being a 3-team race that really kind of had some teeth to it. The Giants have fallen off the face of the planet. Meanwhile, the Padres seemingly have lost their way. Maybe it'll end up being pretty close, but this weekend certainly felt like it was the Dodgers, kind of like we had expected all along.
Couple of one-run contests. LA wins 3-2 yesterday, and 3-2 Friday, 5-4 yesterday, and a 6-0 Los Angeles victory on Saturday. So Dodgers maybe figuring some things out, maybe getting some folks healthy, particularly on the mound, and that's going to kind of be a key for them. Meanwhile, in the NL Central, Milwaukee finally lost a game. Cincinnati wins 3-2-10 yesterday. Milwaukee had won their last 14 prior to that. So the Brewers getting slowed just a tad.
Yeah, the rest of the Major League Baseball is saying they bleed just like we bleed, right? I mean, these guys were not going to lose a game pretty much ever, and they had a magical run. The odds, somebody posted the odds of this happening. They're like point zeros. I mean, it goes into like the billionth decimal place of the streak, considering the opponents and considering the construction of the schedule. It was an epic run, and man, it felt like that they were going to really make some hay and maybe never lose again. And they had a magical game on Saturday that they push into extra innings and then win that one 6-5, only to fall back and suffer that loss yesterday. They're in the midst of a game right now versus the Cubs, a little doubleheader today. That was the first time that the Cubs had gained a game on the Brewers, which they're still 8 back. But first time they had gained a game on those guys in like over a month, it felt like. So a chance for maybe a glimmer of hope for the rest of the NL after these guys show a little weakness.
Yeah, again, the Cubs and Milwaukee going at it right now at Wrigley Field. It's 2-0 Milwaukee in the top of the 6th there. So, and this is big for the Cubs. The Cubs come into this game 8 games back, and this might kind of be their last stand.
Yeah, if they want any shot of winning the division, this has got to be a series that they pick up a couple of games, and it doesn't look good right now. But if they're a team too that they got their sights set on things bigger than the division. But if you want to win the division, you have to absolutely get a couple. You'd like to take as many as possible versus these guys. Doesn't look good early though.
Yeah, it does not look good for this one here. And you were mentioning Kyle Tucker a couple of seconds ago. The Cubs go out and get him over the offseason. I mean, some of the moves that the Cubs made over the offseason, it's kind of like they really pushed their chips into the middle of the table trying to make a run for it. And with that said, again, this 8-game deficit that they're looking at as they look up at the Brewers here in mid to late August does not bode well. They got to get some stuff done this week.
Got to get some stuff done, and that's the big worry in Chicago is they made these big moves in the offseason, but right when you're in the thick of things in late July, they really kind of stood pat on their roster, and everybody from the moment they got Tucker has been kind of biting their fingernails, wondering on if they're going to keep him or bring him back, because that is a big piece that if you end up letting walk and you really don't get the most out of it, you're going to be scratching your head saying, what the heck do we kind of do that deal for? Maybe would have liked to have seen a little more movement if you're a Cubs fan at the deadline, but they felt like they had the goods to kind of get through. Certainly probably didn't anticipate Milwaukee being hotter than a $2 pistol over the first couple of weeks of August here. But them's the breaks, baby, and here we are. We find themselves 8 games back, and they could see that number grow by the end of the day today.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. And this is a doubleheader, like you said. I mean, if this goes wrong, again, this could be their last stand. You could be looking at double digits down by the end of the night tonight if you're the Cubs.
Could be. I mean, the thing that makes you put your head to the pillow a little easier, though, is, you can make a case that they're the second best team in the National League. They just happen to be in the same division as the Brewers. This is a team that could still flirt with over 90 wins, most likely by the end of the season. And you could still find yourself trailing by double digits at the end of the regular season in your own division. That's the kind of run that the Brewers have been on. But the Cubs, they're not a team without their flaws. They're going to have to figure some things out if they really want to make a push into the postseason. They look great in the months of May and June in particular, but have cooled off at the same time, unfortunately, that Milwaukee has really gotten hot.
And this push that Milwaukee has been on of late has kind of been to some degree at the expense of their AAA affiliate. The Nashville Sounds dropped an 8-4 decision over at Durham yesterday. Split that series with the Bulls. They are 64-54 on the year, but here in the second half, they are 20-25 in International League play. Despite Dash Cameron's 14th home run of the season and a double yesterday, they fall by 4. And again, their roster has been so fluid because of so many of the moves that Milwaukee has had to make over the course of the season. It's kind of cost them some upward mobility there, but that's what they're there for. Yeah. So Sounds come back home to First Horizon Park tomorrow. They open a 12-game, 2-week homestand. First against the Louisville Bats. This will be the only trip down 65 that the Bats make this season. Probably the closest opponent that the Sounds have, 3 hours away, either them or Memphis. Louisville only comes to town once. Go figure. And don't have this conversation with Jeff Helm. It kind of shoots his blood pressure up. But Louisville's in town for 6 this week. Charlotte comes in for 6 next week. I think it's the only 12-game homestand that the Sounds have this season. So if you want to see the Sounds, you got a pretty good shot to do so here over the next couple of weeks. So get on out there. Tito's Tail Wagging Tuesday tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be a big week and a big home stretch for them, right when the temperature gets to 100 degrees tomorrow. But so be extra careful if you are heading out to First Horizon. You mentioned it too, though. Chad Patrick, they just called him up today back to the big league club from Nashville. Tyler Black is coming back down. They're in that constant yo-yo battle. One other big piece of the puzzle, though, they were without Isaac Collins over the weekend. He was on the paternity list, but he's now been activated again. So, man, they have so many moving parts. We talked about Friday that The Miz is back, and he did not do so well in his return to the mound with the Brewers. But that just speaks to the overall success of this franchise as a whole. Who knows what it means for the postseason this year at the big league level? Who knows, or who really, outside of the guys in the Nashville Sounds organization and clubhouse, who really knows or cares, about a AAA championship? But the franchise from top to bottom continues to be one of the best run in the biz. And that's kind of part of it, is you see so many moving parts and so many guys having success, whether they're coming up or going down.
You're right. It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on both the Brewers and the Sounds as the fallout from the Brewers and their success and their moves takes place. So we'll be keeping up with all of that here over the next few weeks. Hour number 1 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, comes to a close. After this break, we'll jump into hour number 2 as we get into the grab bag. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It gets going right now. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. I didn't get to see it because the NFL was going up against high school football on Friday night, but the Tennessee Titans pick up a 23-20 win down in Atlanta over the Falcons in their second preseason matchup of the season. They will close out their preseason schedule this Friday against the visiting Minnesota Vikings. Really haven't had much chance to hear a whole lot about the way things went, but I mean, a win has to mean something. And apparently Gunnar Helm, 48 yards receiving on 4 catches, one of which was a touchdown from Brandon Allen. So the rookie tight end starting to show up a little bit.
Yeah, and that is one of the big takeaways. That's a guy that I've been high on since they drafted him, and kind of a lot of oohs and ahs potentially of what could be for him. The other big highlight is a mixed bag, Mo, because number one, it's preseason, so I mean it really doesn't matter. But man, you saw some good stuff. Cam Ward, with the fact that Cam Ward has an incompletion that is generating as many highlights as the Titans, some of their touchdown passes last year, that kind of tells you all you need to know. But an absolute dart that hits Van Jefferson right in a bad spot, I mean right in the hands, sells you a little bit more, even in a 2 of 7 passing effort, sells you a little more on, man, Cam Ward does have some special juice at times. Looked upright, looked pretty mobile, looked pretty comfortable in the pocket. Kind of liked what I saw out of him on Friday night. Rushing game looked pretty solid with that crowded backfield of Mims and Mullings with Chestnut kind of sprinkled in there. Week 2 is kind of the week where you see a little bit more. You kind of almost forget the preseason is still going on in some regards. You get so excited after week 1 that you kind of forget about weeks 2 and 3. But all in all, not a bad week for the Titans to cap what was a grueling, long road trip. Those guys have been on the road for 2 weeks. Going down to Tampa and then straight to Atlanta.
You know, as we talked to Donnell Suggs heading into that game on Friday, Donnell Suggs with the Atlanta Voice talking little Titans and Falcons, we were kind of talking about the meh of both defenses. Well, Titans got on the board with a pick 6. Kendall Brooks with a 53-yard interception return for a score to get the scoring started. So had to kind of jumpstart things and get the defense feeling pretty good about itself, a defensive unit that, again, folks have been kind of meh about here over the preseason.
Yeah, and it was nice to see Kendall Brooks jump the route there and take 153 yards to the crib until you realize that it was Easton Stick throwing it, right? I mean, no disrespect to the former North Dakota State standout, the former Charger, but we ain't talking about Penix, and we're certainly not talking about Cousins throwing one right there in the midst. Maybe Cousins, I guess, but maybe not Penix. But the fact is, the Titans need a little signs of life. You got to see some extra guys rotate in the rotation. Really liked what we saw out of Cedric Gray for a second straight week. Kind of manhandling a couple of would-be blockers on some rushes that he had. There's also still a little bit of a milk carton factor for Femi Oladejo, the second-round pick for the Titans. He didn't necessarily impress, didn't necessarily dazzle in his first 2 series, his 2 series that he got on the field. But then you also kind of have to realize, I mean, you're not playing with Big Jeff, you're not playing with Sweat. So Meatloaf and Sweat are not out there holding down things in the middle. Kind of a still incomplete bag, but I mean, hey, that's what preseason football is all about, is trying to just see and fill out the back end of your roster. We're not really going to know until a couple weeks' time when you head to Denver.
Yeah. I think one of the bigger concerns, maybe, or one of the bigger developments for the Titans was seeing Lloyd Cushenberry out there doing warm-ups. I mean, did not play, but was dressed out for warm-ups and went through drills in pregame. And it would feel like that's kind of a good sign for this team, getting their veteran center back who missed most of the season with an Achilles situation. So
yeah, and
he's working back.
He's working back. The offensive line looks a little more improved, which is a massive upgrade from the last couple of seasons. Only 3 quarterback hits all night long for the Falcons. Again, we're talking about second and third string units for a lot of these guys, but the fact is the Titans offensive line playing a little better. Liked what I saw in the run game as far as opening some holes. Liked what I saw in the protection for Ward a little bit when he was in there, and even that extended to Brandon Allen and right at the end with Trevor Siemian there. So couple good things to come out of this after a grueling trip for the Titans. They'll get a chance to, rest everybody. Anybody that's on the cusp. This is obviously kind of a make or break week when the Vikings come to town on Friday night. But you got to feel pretty good. No major injuries that I've seen coming across the wire here coming out of that, but that's always a big thing too. So feeling okay. And, like you said, sneaking out a win, that, counts a little bit in terms of morale, you would think, in the locker room.
You mentioned that offensive line. Kevin Zeitler didn't play, in addition to Cushionberry. So, to continue to not feel bad about that line with some key performers not getting on the field, it maybe gives you a little boost of confidence in that front as the season gets closer. So something to keep an eye on there. And it seems that coming out of Atlanta, the Titans have made a move. Teresa Walker continues to tell us that they will be at the top of the waiver list until I think week 3 of the regular season. So anybody that goes on waivers, the Titans will have first crack at by virtue of that 3-14 finish last year. And so they have signed former Arkansas defensive tackle TJ Smith, and waived defensive lineman Philip Bleedy. So
a little extra, yeah. Who knows what the folks in the lab over there are kind of tinkering, and they're just trying to do their due diligence, do their best effort, and try and fill out the roster as best they can. These are not the flashiest moves, not the sexiest moves, but they're up to something over there at Ascension St. Thomas. So
and again,
won't be the last move we see. Obviously, the rest of this cycle.
Coming off a 3-14 season, they need to be up to something, right? So, yeah. Minnesota coming in to close things out. Some folks going to have some decisions to make because, again, this is week 1 of the high school football season this weekend. You're going to go watch your favorite high school team play. You're going to go down to Nissan Stadium and watch a preseason NFL game Friday night. I'll be interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, tough break for the Titans with back-to-back Friday night draws there. But them's the breaks. Chiefs and Seahawks also had a game on Friday, too. The Seahawks absolutely ran wild on the Chiefs in that one on Friday. But, yeah, it'll be a tough decision. And, the NFL tries, or they at least give the illusion at times. We saw a game in Brazil on Friday last year. So they try and do their due diligence. And like I said, tough break for the Titans fans, a tough break for the TSSAA that they are going head-to-head. But them's the breaks the way the schedule broke down this year.
Yeah. The Rams got some good news today. Quarterback Matthew Stafford coming back to the practice field apparently had some back concerns here of late, but he's back on the field. And I mean, it's going to be better than anything else the Rams could run out there, you would think. So it's got to be good to have him back.
For sure. And, this was the one that everybody was kind of waiting to see if Sean McVay would kind of kept it real close to the vest over the weekend, said, wait till Monday, we're going to announce a little something. So that is good news. Got a whole game worth of Stetson Bennett over the weekend. And, yeah, if you're a Rams fan, you're okay maybe for a game or two if Stafford needs a breather in the middle of the season. But it is a totally different look with Stetson Bennett running that offense as opposed to Stafford. They go as Stafford goes, and they will need him healthy as many games as possible to be one of those sleeper teams in the NFC this year.
Sleeper, but they also picked up Devontae Adams over the offseason. So, I mean, Stafford to Adams, with what they already had in the receiving core, that suddenly sounds like they might give some folks some problems in the passing game, or even more so. So,
and I mean, they were right there in the mix last year. They were a team that really a lot of folks thought make a run in the NFC in the postseason, and just quite didn't have the goods down the stretch in the game that mattered the most for them in the playoffs. They were a play or two away from really making a run, and if Stafford stays healthy, they have that in them this year. But you got to keep that dude in bubble wrap as long as possible.
Without question. While the Rams got some good news, the Bengals continue to, just implode around this Trey Hendrickson situation. There are thoughts that he's going to be moved, and it's just crazy for everything that they've got going on offensively that they're gonna. It looks like they're probably going to lose the leading sacker from the 2024 season. 35 sacks over the last 2 years. I don't know who does a worse job of not being able to get out of their way, the Browns or the Bengals?
Yeah, and I mean, this is not a Jerry Jones stealing headlines situation. It feels like when you see that Trey Hendrickson is potentially on the block and they're listening to offers, I believe that, because we are talking about the Bengals, like you said, one of the most the poors of the poor, if you will, in terms of reputation amongst the league. It'll be fascinating. I'm reading an article on CBS, and the top two teams they have as trade targets are the Lions and the Packers, two teams that are right there in the mix as far as competing for the NFC Championship this season. So if they move him out of the AFC, those two teams listed again on CBS Sports as contenders to maybe land him. And then beyond that, I'm not really sure who ponies up. It feels like it's got to be a team that feels they're one player away from making a run.
Right.
But this has been bungled by the Bengals for yet another situation here. They find themselves the laughing stock kind of the NFL once more.
Man, if it's the Lions, can you imagine Hendrickson on one side and Aiden Hutchinson on the other side?
Would be fantastic. And, I mean, when I see that, though, I'm wondering, does that mean that Hutchinson is good to go and they're thinking, let's unleash holy hell on everybody? Or does that say, hey, maybe he's not quite back to where he was, which was trending toward Defensive Player of the Year last year. Maybe we have Hendrickson as the ultimate backup or the ultimate kind of sidekick there. Two ways to look at that. I'm curious which it is for the Lions, if they are a legit contender in this trade talk.
I'm looking at an article here on NFL.com, and among some of the others, if not the Lions or Packers, the Falcons are in that mix. Now, I think they're probably
why not add another edge rusher, right?
Well, might as well. Just give me all your edge rushers, yeah, because 2 rookies wasn't enough. Let's get this guy as well. Or maybe they feel like they can package one of those edge rushers to Cincinnati in exchange for. It's going to be quite the finish there for Cincinnati if this goes the way it looks like it's going. So, yeah, stay tuned. In the courts, it was ruled recently that the NFL can be put on trial as part of Brian Flores's lawsuit that has been pretty quiet of late, but he has sued the NFL for racial discrimination, and it's been ruled to go forward with the NFL as a defendant, along with the Broncos, Dolphins, and Giants. Flores alleging racism in the league's hiring process. Said that both the Giants and Broncos interviewed him solely to satisfy the Rooney Rule, and that he was not a serious candidate for those jobs. So we're going to court with this one, apparently. It'll be interesting to see how that comes out.
100%. And, you go to court when evidence gets introduced, that more often than not is the reason you want to settle out of court, is so you don't have your dirty laundry kind of aired out. So this will be fascinating. The NFL is at liberty, at least. Who knows how it'll play out, but they're at least at liberty to request a rehearing to see. I don't know what would change, but you could hypothetically get a different ruling if they kick this back into court and then end up back in arbitration. But, yeah, they probably don't want any part of this, I would imagine, getting aired out in public.
Yeah, and it's you almost wish it would go to court for that very reason, Wade. Let's get all this out here. But, if Flores was to settle, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, he is currently defensive coordinator for the Vikings, and most likely that's not going to change. But, what does a settlement look like? I mean, does Goodell get in somebody's ear and say, hey, hire this guy? Or how does that work?
Well, the way I'm understanding this is if you go to arbitration, that allows Goodell to be the arbiter. And so basically he can kind of dictate the terms, and, presumably you're going to get, number one, as we mentioned, you don't have your dirty deeds out there in public, but number two, you can enforce your own penalty, and they don't have to tell us or really give us any sort of indication what the penalty is or who was at fault even, really, is the way I'm understanding this. Whereas if you go to court, everything's a little bit more public, a little more out in the open. We see who's guilty, who's not guilty, who's at fault, who's not at fault. and we kind of see the damages. The NFL kind of wants to keep this as under wraps as possible, and by going the arbitration route with Goodell as the arbiter there, they kind of control the terms. And, there will probably be some sort of slap on the wrist or some sort of, penalty for certain teams or certain franchises, but we wouldn't know. We won't get the juicy deets that we would get if it goes to court.
Absolutely. Tennessee's coaching staff announced what I think most of us already knew. Joey Aguilar will be their starter for their season opener. And again, I just don't think that was a great shock that Aguilar, the UCLA transfer via Appy State, is going to be the first one out when they take on Syracuse down in Atlanta over Labor Day weekend. As Christopher Gabriel said on his Twitter, you didn't bring this guy in to sit. And I don't think anybody ever really thought otherwise. You feel decent about the situation behind him, but you felt like they were behind him.
Yeah, and, some of the Vols fans out there are, this is across a number of different franchises, but you bring a guy in from, quote, App State or, a, quote, small school, and you're a little hesitant, you're a little gun shy, and you're not really sure what to expect. But the fact is, this guy's got the most experience, and good or bad, that experience is going to be crucial for them as they kind of try and get off on a good start. They're favored by 14.5 in their opener versus Syracuse. He gives you at least your best shot to win that game. Beyond that, who really knows? And you'll maybe reevaluate as the season goes along. But at least as far as getting off on a good note, he is definitely your guy. So that's, not a shock to me. But some Vols fans, that's not good enough. They kind of want to see somebody that has a little bit more promise or upside or a bigger pedigree. Well, you got who you got, and that's the guy you got right now.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here as the weekend wrap-up continues on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will continue our Southeastern Conference football previews with Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated, talking a little Boomer Sooner when we get back.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We continue our Southeastern Conference football previews now as we bring in Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated to talk a little Oklahoma. Tom, good afternoon.
Hey guys, how's it going?
What's up?
Great, man. Appreciate you taking some time to chat with us here. Tell us about the Sooners. What are the expectations right now?
Yeah, I mean, the expectations are to be better than last year. Certainly a very disappointing and frustrating first season in the SEC for Oklahoma. You know, they went 6-7, just 6-6 in the regular season, 2 SEC wins against Alabama and Auburn, but they had their worst offense in more than a quarter century, which was just kind of unprecedented for a program that has enjoyed offensive success as much as Oklahoma has in, you know, the last couple decades. But, you know, the defense has steadily improved in each year under Brent Venables, and it's expected to be another strong unit this year. The offense has kind of had a bit of a makeover this offseason, you know, bringing in Ben Arbuckle from Washington State, you know, 29-year-old hotshot coordinator who has, you know, 3 years of play calling experience under his belt. And they're pairing him with his quarterback from last season at Washington State and John Mateer, who was, you know, one of the most dynamic dual threat passers in the country last year. So they're hoping the combination of those two can kind of help jumpstart an offensive turnaround this year for them. And, you know, lead to a better overall season, but it's going to be tough because they have, you know, the toughest or one of the toughest schedules in the country this year.
You know, I'm really intrigued by the Mateer situation, Tom, just from the standpoint that I watched a little bit of Oklahoma last year. And, you know, Michael Hawkins Jr., as a true freshman, looked like he had some positive performances out there for the Sooners. I mean, to the point that Jackson Arnold left and is now at Auburn. But, you know, where is he in the mix at quarterback right now?
I mean, he's firmly the backup this year. But he, by all accounts, this offseason, you know, Michael Hawkins is just, you know, taken huge strides. I think having Ben Arbuckle there, and they brought in John Kuzieski, who's worked with Ben Arbuckle the last few years too at Washington State and Western Kentucky, to really help hone those quarterbacks a little bit more. And I think the raw talent for Michael Hawkins is there, and they're really pleased with where he is. That if something were to happen to John Mateer, they would feel very comfortable inserting him in there at quarterback. But make no mistake about it, this is John Mateer's team this year. You know, they brought him in as one of the top quarterbacks in the transfer portal, hoping he can kind of replicate that success he had last season when, you know, he led the country in total touchdowns for the regular season with 44.
When you talk about if something were to happen to John Mateer, there's the football side of things, and then there's what we saw last week with the gambling accusations and the Venmo transactions, which is by far the sneakiest and weirdest app to track if you ever find yourself scrolling on Venmo transactions. But where do we sit? Saw Brent Venables kind of broke the silence on that. What did he have to say about his quarterback in that whole situation?
Yeah, I think as far as the team's concerned, that this is a thing that's behind them. You know, their compliance department feels very good about where they're at. You know, they don't, you know, there's not NCAA is not investigating it right now. They're not expecting a pending investigation. They feel satisfied with the answers that they got. You know, Brent Venables said, you know, John Mateer's kind of put it behind him and feels like it's kind of a non-story. Like, he realizes the gravity of the situation and, you know, what those, you know, quote unquote inside jokes may look like to anybody from the outside. But also I think it's just a lesson to everybody. It's like, man, just put that kind of stuff on private. When people can see who you're sending money to and for what reasons. I mean, look, I know I joke with friends and people about, you know, what transactions might be for. It's never actually for what it is intended for. Like if we're ordering pizza or something, like we'll put inside jokes or, you know, dumb emojis or something like that. You know, people do that. And, you know, you got to remember, he was an 18-year-old freshman at the time. Of course, like if he was gambling on sports, it is a very serious accusation because, you know, even though he didn't really play much as a freshman, you know, very limited opportunities, you know, one of those transactions was labeled USC, UCLA. Those teams were both in the Pac-12 with Washington State. So it's certainly nothing that they're, you know, just, you know, raising their nose up at, but, you know, they feel like they got satisfactory answers and aren't really concerned about it moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to remember that. Note to friends and note to self. Don't put sports gambling UCLA versus USC when you're sending Venmo to your buddies, I guess, going forward. Tom, though, I do want to ask you, you mentioned, man, it does feel like there's a lot of potential promise for this Oklahoma team, but how is that so awkwardly juxtaposed against one of the most challenging schedules, certainly in SEC play, but you also got some tough non-conference games too. What are the dynamics at play here, and how does OU kind of thread that needle of a talented roster but a really difficult schedule this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, like they had one of the toughest schedules in the country last year, and things just went haywire for them when the offense wasn't clicking. So they're hoping that even, look, the offense doesn't need to be top 10 in the country for this team to make significant improvements. If they just had an average offense last season, they could have won 8 or 9 games. So I think if the offense gets to where they hope it can be, and all signs in fall camp right now indicate that this offense has a chance to be pretty good, that they'll be able to kind of navigate that schedule. But again, it's tough. You don't have much of a runway like you did last year when I think you had, 3 or 4 games before that SEC opener against Tennessee, whereas this year, you open with Illinois State next weekend, and then you jump right in, you host Michigan in week 2. And that is going to be a serious test for this team, especially the offense going up against that Michigan defense. But they're confident that, they'll be able to make some strides offensively. And the thing that's been really interesting is, when we heard from Brent Venables last week, and, we've heard this throughout camp, is that there's been more give and take between the offense and defense this preseason, where last year when we were talking about them, it was like, man, the defense just dominated the scrimmage. The defense is having its way. And it's like, okay, is the defense that good or is the offense that bad? Turned out it was a little bit of both last season. But now you're talking about a Brent Venables defense that's in year 4 and is expected to be, probably top 10, 15 in the country if things go as planned for them, and an offense that is, holding its own against them in, after just an off season of installation. And, obviously you have the quarterback, offense coordinator dynamic there, but for them to kind of, be there and get some of their own against that defense, I think it's a telling sign for optimism for this team going into the year.
Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Tom, you talk about not having much of a runway, but after you get past Michigan, your next 3 are Temple, Auburn, and Kent State. Temple in Philly, but the other 2 at home. Auburn, your SEC opener, and that's Jackson Arnold coming back to Norman. But those are 3 games there that if you can get past Michigan, you got a pretty good shot to, at worst be 4-1 going into Texas.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you can get past Michigan, I think you have a really good chance of being 5-0 going into that Texas game. And we'll see where Texas is at. Obviously, they have a very difficult opener against Ohio State. It should be interesting to see how those 2 teams match up. But, if they can get past Michigan, that's when you have a little bit of runway to kind of figure things out. That, that week 3 trip to Temple, which still kind of weird to me that they're traveling to Philadelphia to play Temple, part of a 2-for-1 series. But then, hosting Auburn, and obviously, this defense is very familiar with Jackson Arnold. I know he's got some better weapons around him, probably a better offensive line situation than he had last year at Oklahoma. But it's a defense that knows his tendencies, knows him well, and Brent Venables is not going to hold back against his old quarterback. So that's certainly going to be an interesting SEC opener to watch. And then, Kent State, another bottom of the barrel FBS team, as kind of a warm up there before the Red River rivalry. So if you can get past Michigan, you're in pretty good shape for that first half of the season. It's the second half of that schedule that just gets kind of unforgiving.
You go through the second half of that schedule, and, you have at South Carolina, at Tennessee, and at Alabama. Texas is obviously what Texas is. As tricky as that is, you do have the benefit of, and now granted they're the 3 toughest opponents, I guess, in that second half, but your 3 toughest opponents are your only 3 true road games in SEC play this year outside of the Texas matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think those games are going to be big tests for them. Like that, I think that Alabama game is going to be incredibly difficult. Tennessee nailing obviously one of the better atmospheres in the country. I think the saving grace for them for that South Carolina game is that it's going to be, that early time slot, 11, 12, whatever the local time will be for that one. So it probably be very warm still, but it's not going to be, quite like it's going to be like under the lights at, South Carolina Stadium. But yeah, I mean, that second half of the schedule is difficult. I mean, you mentioned those 3 road games, but you look at what they have at home too. I mean, they're hosting Ole Miss, they're hosting Missouri, they're hosting LSU. Like, those are 6 very good teams on the back half of the schedule. They're going to present troubles for this Oklahoma team. And look, if they can come out of that, I don't want to say unscathed because I don't think anybody's predicting Oklahoma to go 12-0. But if they can hold their own against that schedule, they're gonna, we're gonna know a lot about this team. Like, there's not gonna be any questions about how good they are or what their potential is if they can, kind of manage that schedule.
Tom, as the resident Michigan fan on this show, I'm familiar with a defense having to be good enough to hold up a bad offense. It seems like, though, Oklahoma, there's even more optimism. And so my question is, can the defense hold the serve early? And is this offense capable of taking off and really flourishing in the second half? Or is this really going to be, hey, we need to hang our hats on the defense all year long, no matter how good the offense kind of comes along?
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense has a chance to kind of take off once they get settled. Look, there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way for the offense, but I think if they can stay healthy, they have a chance to be really good on that side of the ball. And you look at last year, like Jackson Arnold had his struggles, but a lot of that was just a terrible situation around him. Like, their top 5 wide receivers barely played, if at all, throughout the season. They started 8 different combinations along the offensive line through the first 9 games before kind of settling in late in the year there. And it was just so many changing variables that were not optimal for any quarterback, much less a first-year starter, to have success. But I think that that pre-existing relationship and familiarity between Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer, and adding a guy like Jaden Ott at running back, and just having better depth across the offensive line. I still don't know what this offensive line is going to look like in a week and a half. But I know they feel a lot better that they have 6, 7, 8 guys that can start, whereas last year they were scraping the barrel to try to put together a 5-man unit for half the season. So I think this offense has a lot of potential, and I don't think there's any doubt about what this defense is going to be, because they returned 7 or 8 starters from that unit. Like, yeah, you're replacing Danny Stutzman, you're replacing Billy Bowman, 2 guys that were just stalwarts on that unit. But they've done a really good job of just recruiting and developing talent on that side of the ball, with Brent Venables back calling plays. So I think they're going to be in good shape there.
You mentioned Jaden Ott, and I wanted to ask, how big of an impact is this a guy that could, really, really break out after a great little run at Cal there? Is he a guy that could make a massive splash in the SEC in your mind, or is he a guy that, will be serviceable for what OU needs him to do this year?
I think he's a bona fide difference maker for this team. I mean, you look at Oklahoma, they've kind of had a by committee approach these last few years. I think they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since Eric Gray in 2022, I guess it was. But
that's
Jaden
a little
Ott,
bit of a sore spot around here, by the way.
But Jaden Ott, I mean, he is a certified 3-down back who can split out wide, do some things in the slot. He can factor into the return game, and look, last year at Cal wasn't great for him. He was battling a high ankle sprain and a knee sprain that he says was misdiagnosed and mishandled, and he probably should have sat a few more weeks to kind of get that sorted out. But the year before, his breakout season as a sophomore in 2023, he was one of the best running backs in the country. And they fully expect a healthy Jaden Ott to be at that caliber in this offense. And I know Ben Arbuckle is really excited about kind of how he can use him and how he can get him the ball in space, because he's shifty, he's great at breaking tackles, and he's got top end speed that makes him a real weapon for this offense.
Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Tom, we've talked about that defense. Who are some of the guys that are going to make that defense what it's expected to be?
I think you have to start with that defensive line. There's been a lot of chatter this offseason about, whether this defensive line can, be the best in the SEC, and I guess, as an extension, one of the best in the country. And I think that conversation starts with our Mason Thomas, who was a second-team All-SEC performer last year, led the team in sacks, quarterback pressures, tackles for loss, and now he's back for his senior season, looking to build off that and kind of fortify himself as a, potential first-round guy next spring. But you just go across that line. Like, you're bringing back Dominic Williams, who, started for 2 years at TCU and then was a starter for you last year. Jaden Jackson was a freshman All-American last year. at them, and by all accounts, he's just been a rock there, and like they've not been able to move him in practice, and I expect him to kind of set the point of attack for them, especially in the run game. Big question over there is who's going to be kind of R. Mason Thomas's running mate on the opposite end, but they've got good depth up front, and then you look at some of the other guys that they bring back. Kip Lewis at linebacker. I mentioned those 2 wins against Auburn and Alabama. He had a pick 6 in both those games and was their 3rd leading tackler on the year. So he's kind of taken over that leadership role at linebacker. And then on the back end, Robert Spears Jennings, a guy that just quietly solid. A lot of the attention the last couple of years was on Billy Bowman, and for good reason for what he did back there. But, Robert Spears Jennings was their 2nd leading tackler. He was, I think, like top 5 in the country in fumbles forced individually last year. And now he's back to just kind of solidify the top end of that, or the back end of that defense. So I think those are, really the big names to watch for them on that side of the ball.
Let me figure out how I want to put this. Coming off of the disappointing season that Oklahoma had last year, when Brent Venables, things did get a little uncomfortable for him and his seat last year. What has to happen for him to be back in 26?
That's tough. Look, I think they need to show improvement. And the question is, how do you gauge improvement against a schedule that tough? If you were to ask me to set like a win total that I feel like he needs to reach to be comfortable in his role coming back, I think they need to win probably 8 games during the regular season, maybe have a chance for a 9th game in a bowl game. But again, we're going to learn so much about this team in the second half of the season. And as I think if they, the offense shows progress and they stay competitive in those games, even if they drop a couple tough ones, it's kind of, proof of concept that they're heading in the right direction and they have the pieces in place to kind of, avoid, having another 6 and 7 season like they've had 2 of his first 3 years.
With that being said, Vegas has the over-under for the season at 6.5, has the over-under for conference wins at 3.5. Do they go over both of those numbers in your mind, Tom?
I think so.
I
guess I think 8 wins is realistic for this team, and if the offense really clicks, they have a chance to surprise some people this year.
The one thing that does trick me or scare me a little bit, I guess, is let me make sure I get this right here. 7-13 under Venables in true road games. Is there some sort of magic thing that clicks this year? Is that a mixture of just the guys that he has on the roster, or does something coaching-wise click for him? Because that is kind of a jarring stat when you talk about their 3 toughest games maybe in the league outside of Texas are road games this year.
I mean, I think there's a bunch of variables that go into that. This offseason they brought in Kevin Wilson, the former head coach at Tulsa, who, was a very successful offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, at Ohio State, at Indiana. And I think he's helping a little bit more, behind the scenes, like with, game management type situations, because that hasn't always been the strong point for Brent Venables as a head coach. Allows him to focus a little bit more on some other aspects, especially now that he's back calling plays. But I think just having a better offensive situation overall is going to help them, because like you look back at some of those losses, and some of those losses were, by single digits. I mean, that Missouri game last year was just kind of a crazy meltdown in the final couple minutes there. 2023, you look at both their losses on the road at Kansas and at Oklahoma State. Both those games decided by 1 score, just because the offense, kind of couldn't execute late with a lead, and it cost them. So I think just better game management will help them in those situations. And again, having better complementary football, like you have a really good defense if the offense can step up and carry some of its weight, because I think that really did impact the defense last year, where it's like, yeah, they're playing lights out, and eventually the offense is going 3 and out or turning it over. Like something's going to give eventually.
Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Tom, who's somebody that's going to surprise us off this roster this year?
Oof. I'll name you a couple of candidates. I'll go offensively. I will go with Isaiah Satania, transfer wide receiver from Arkansas. I think he was their third leading receiver last year. Hasn't put up like overwhelming numbers throughout his career, but he's a guy that's got SEC experience, and this is a completely retooled wide receiver room. I mentioned the 5 guys that pretty much missed all of last season. They had all those guys, or 4 of those 5 leave. Had a couple other players transfer out, and they brought in a few transfers, some promising freshmen. But since the spring, like Isaiah Satania is just that name that we've heard again and again as he's kind of Mr. Reliable for them. I think he's developed a really good rapport with John Mateer. He can play in the slot. He can split outside. He's got some top end speed. I believe his dad is one of the track and field coaches at Texas A&M, and his mom was an Olympic track athlete too. So he's got really good speed, and he's just very precise in his routes. He knows where to be, and I think having someone like that in a first-year offense that John Mateer can trust, I think he's a guy that might just like funnel targets to and just be one of those go-to guys for them. Defensively, I'll point to another transfer, Kendall Daniels, who came over from Oklahoma State. Had some big numbers at Oklahoma State, but there were questions about his effort and just like how effective he actually was in his roles there. I think he's in a better situation here now and is really kind of acclimated and is kind of taken over that cheetah role in Brent Venables' defense. Basically the slot and linebacker hybrid safety role. And I think he's going to be a real difference maker for them and a playmaker that they can kind of move all over the place this year.
You mentioned Mateer a couple times there. He's listed in both Phil Steele and he's 25-1 on DraftKings at the moment. Is there a chance in a perfect season that this is a guy that could get an invite as a Heisman Trophy finalist in your mind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, if things click for them offensively, again, like this is his 3rd year in Ben Harpel's system. He knows the system well. He's performed in it, albeit, look, last season, Washington State's schedule was a central schedule, but he's put up big numbers in it. He's comfortable in it. It seems like he's really made this offense his own this offseason. He's done a lot to just, develop relationships, not just with his wide receivers and his running backs, but to really get a better understanding of the offensive line. We were talking to Bill Bedenbaugh, Oklahoma's longtime offensive line coach last week. And he was like, yeah, I was halfway through, one of my position group meetings and I looked up and John Mateer's in the back diligently taking notes. Like he wants to understand these protections and do what he can to, get the offensive line into the right reads and everything. So I think, again, if things go well offensively, just given his past success and given Oklahoma's pedigree of producing Heisman winners and Heisman finalists, that if things go well for Oklahoma, he will be in that discussion at the end of the season.
There we go. Tom Green from Sooners Illustrated joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia as we continue our Southeastern Conference football previews, giving us a look inside the Oklahoma Sooners. Tom, we appreciate it, man. Look forward to catching up with you again later this season.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
Absolutely. Let's take a break, our final break of the day here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today. When we get back, we will touch on some items from the weekend. Stick around.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier Whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the PIC Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
It's the final segment of the weekend wrap-up here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Reggie Barlow, first-year Tennessee State University football coach, got some tough news over the weekend as defensive back Kamani Cobbs announced via his socials that he will be entering the transfer portal. Transferred in from Southeast Missouri State during the past offseason, was named a preseason All-American by BoxToRow.com, a HBCU preseason All-American. Redshirt sophomore out of McDonough, Georgia. I'm sorry. He did not transfer in over the offseason. He transferred in last year, played in 7 games this past season for TSU. 7 total tackles, 2 pass breakups, but was expected to be a factor defensively for this team again in Barlow's first season, and stepping away 2 weeks before their season opener against North Carolina A&T. Intriguing to say the least.
Yeah, tough timing for TSU. Tough timing, obviously, for Coach Barlow. And, man, that is a big blow. TSU was already kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of their roster. Only 5 players had played over 200 snaps, or what we call significant contributors that returned to this year's season. So they basically have a brand new squad. And one of the key cogs, it sounds like, that you were really trying to rely on, you're now having to replace just 2 weeks kind of before you get things rolling when A&T comes to town. That is a difficult turnaround for what has been a difficult offseason. Best of luck to Coach Barlow and the squad. Probably the message is, hey, if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here. So let's roll with the guns we got and let's see what we can do. That is a big blow, though, this late in the game for sure.
It absolutely is. And I mean, I can appreciate coaches taking that stance, certainly publicly. We need everybody headed in the same direction. We need people that want to be here, that kind of thing. But man, when you are already struggling from an experience standpoint and then you lose somebody like that, it's not easy. It's not fun. So, again, best wishes to Coach Barlow and TSU, but this is a tough blow to deal with here. Again, they open August 30th. That's less than 2 weeks. That's 12 days from this past Saturday, or 14 days from this past Saturday, 12 days from today. So trying to get somebody repped up and ready to step into that role ain't going to be a whole lot of fun.
Nope.
I assume Reggie Barlow will be doing a coach's show on the radio airwaves in and around Nashville, which most college football coaches do. Bill Belichick is not most college football coaches. And what was Mac Brown Live in North Carolina will now be manned primarily by North Carolina General Manager Michael Lombardi. Carolina has had a coaching show for years, again, as most college football programs do. Belichick is set to appear on the first run of that show on August 27th, but will not make regularly scheduled appearances. Lombardi will be on each week, and assistant coaches and players will be on. Apparently, it's not in Belichick's contract to appear on the weekly North Carolina coaches show. He's kind of rewriting the college football coaching handbook, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, devil's in the details. And, if you were looking forward to tuning in, man, this is bad news for Coach's Show. We just heard Vol calls is going away. And then now all of a sudden Belichick's like, you know what? I ain't doing this. I'll appear every now and again. It's like when I used to host the Giles County Show. You might get David O'Connor every week or couple weeks, and then you might not. You just got to figure out and do the best you can. So best of luck to the host of that show. Probably going to get a little more heads up than that. But Lombardi's not a bad guest. Love listening to him on some other podcasts, but how buttoned up will he be? How company line will he be? It's kind of been the whole same song and dance and circus that has encompassed this entire situation. Throw Jordan out there for a couple appearances. Why not, right? I mean, let it rip, baby. This is the full Belichick experience this season.
I was going to ask you, when O'Connor was or wasn't on, how much leadway did you get on that? I mean, was it, he ain't coming?
Sometimes,
how did that work?
Sometimes we get lucky and get like 30 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, and then, somebody else would show up. But you roll with the punches. That's showbiz, baby, as we like to say. But, Belichick not being there, like I said, it's not necessarily, we shouldn't be surprised by this because everything about this has kind of been unconventional to say the least. And, you scan in the contract and it says as reasonably requested. If you're Belichick and you don't want to do it, you probably want to stretch that out as often or as far as you can. And so it sounds like if you want to tune in for the coach, your appearances and your chances will be limited this year in Chapel Hill.
Sounds like. From the weekend, we talked about it in the rundown. Scott Scheffler went into yesterday 4 strokes back of Robert McIntyre. He made up 4 strokes in the first 5 holes and went on to win this thing by 2 strokes. I mean, if you are leading and Scotty Scheffler is breathing down your neck, I mean, on a Sunday in particular, that's got to be one of the more uncomfortable feelings there is for a professional golfer, I would think.
You would think. And, man, we had talked and hyped up Bobby Mack a couple different times over the course of last week. But we saw a little bit of a new page or a new wrinkle for Scheffler. That's not usually his MO. He's kind of been old school Tiger where he gets the lead and he hangs on to it. He has not really stalked down a ton of guys during this great run. But Scheffler does it, wins the BMW, keeps rolling. Where's the stat here? Players with 12 wins, including 3 majors in a 2-season span. There's only been 4 guys that have ever done this, Mo. That's Arnold Palmer twice, Jack Nicklaus twice, Tiger did it 4 times, Scheffler now on this current run. So this is yet another ridiculous stat that Scheffler has done. He started like 150 career PGA starts, and he's finished in the top 10 in close to half of those, nearly 75 of those. He's finished in the top 10. The guy's a machine, and he got a big, big win. It'll be interesting, though. This will be the championship this weekend. Can he do it when his back's against the wall? It's one thing to do it in the BMW, Scotty. Let's see if you can do it when the chips really are down this weekend. He probably will.
Did I see that? Yeah, I'm not betting against him. That's for sure. He is the first since Tiger in 06 and 07 to win at least 5 times in back-to-back seasons, which kind of dovetails with the stat that you just gave us a little bit ago. But when those are the names that you're being mentioned with, it's impressive to say the least.
He's unreal, and he does it. I saw him a couple weeks ago. He finds unique ways to just put this extra pressure. And just when you think he's gone, or just when you think you can count him out, he drains a 40-foot putt. He rips your heart out. Over the weekend, we saw him with a chip in for the ages. I mean, this guy just finds ways to come up with massive shots. You can never count him out. And if you're ahead of him, you have to just bury this guy. You have to cut the head off that snake, or else he is going to keep coming. He is unreal. And he has just been dominant over these last 2 years in particular. And it'll be really fascinating to see how long of a run we're talking about with this guy.
You mentioned that they go to East Lake in Atlanta this weekend for the Tour Championship. He and 29 others. And again, you kind of feel like Larry Bird. Who's going to finish second? But $10 million goes to the champion at East Lake this weekend. I don't know that Scheffler has spent it yet, but Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say big tournament, and they're changing the formula up this year, though, Mo. They're not doing the strokes accumulated model anymore. So this is a brand new tournament. Otherwise, Bobby Mack and Scheffler would be really sitting pretty entering the weekend. But it's a brand new, it's a fresh start. The top 30 will have a chance. The usual suspects are there: Scotty, Rory, and Tommy Fleetwood. Think about that, though. How wild would it be after everybody we've bagged on Fleetwood so much about not winning the big one if he just has the stones to come out and win the championship? Tiger a couple years ago at East Lake with that magical run. That last little bit of Tiger magic was one of the craziest and wildest scenes we've ever seen in all of sports. Fleetwood would not even come close to that, but it would be really, really cool. He's listed at 14-1. Don't think he'll get it done. It does feel like it's Scheffler's time, and it feels like we'll be talking about him on this very same time slot next Monday, hoisting the championship.
Man. From the Korn Ferry Tour, we mentioned it on Friday. Blades Brown goes 68-77 through the opening 2 rounds at the Albertsons Boise Open. Missed the cut out there with a +3. They and he get a little time off before the Korn Ferry Tour comes to, well, a lot of people will say Nashville. I'm going to say Franklin because I could hear fireworks from over there. The Simmons Bank Open is at Vanderbilt Legends September 11th through 14th. So, again, if anybody wants to use my driveway to park and walk over, we can arrange something. Let me know. Simmons Bank Open for the Snedeker Foundation, again, is the next Korn Ferry stop. Opens on Thursday, September 11th, and I would imagine Blades will be there.
Yeah, and hopefully this will be a chance for him to kind of collect his thoughts and kind of regroup after missing the cut in a couple of tournaments in a row, but after the news that he's obviously earned full-time status. Hopefully using this, because there will be some extra pressure. There's got to be a little bit of inherent pressure kind of playing in your quote-unquote backyard to kind of and put on a show for the fans. So hopefully he'll use these next couple of weeks to get things kind of prepared. And hopefully you will use these next couple of weeks to get your money right to sell those parking spots to everybody, because you can make some coin, my friend, selling that with Blades and crew looking for parking access. Now, you gotta get their money right.
I'm pretty close, man. I really am. Austin Dillon won at Richmond on Saturday night, clinched one of the final 3 playoff spots for the NASCAR Cup Series. Daytona, the final regular season race, is next week. And again, you're down to 2 spots. So got some folks that need to get some work done here in that one. 14 spots have been clinched. Dillon, the latest to get one. And I'm trying to find who the top 2 are to get in on points real quick, and struggling to do so. Hang on. Here we go. Your top 2 points guys who don't have wins are Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman. If the season ended now, they would be your 15th and 16th drivers in the 16 driver field for the playoffs. But again, Daytona next weekend is your regular season finale. So I'm sure David and Calvin and Heather will be talking more about that on Wednesday. So be sure and tune in. That's going to do it for Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia here on this weekend wrap-up Monday. Again, be sure and check Wade and Calvin White out tomorrow, David Wilson and Calvin on Wednesday, me and David on Thursday, and Wade and I will be back together on Friday. All of that starts at 2 o'clock each day. Y'all have a great Monday evening. We'll see you.